Bulvanaka, and a good morning to you all. I apologize for my voice. I got a flu. I thought it was going to be cured when I went up to Wainimala yesterday, but they belted me with grog and it has made it worse. But it is a pleasure for me to be at your graduation this morning. I know that they're twofold from the two schools that are run by the ministry, and of course to welcome our new intake. When they have graduations at colleges and university, the speech is always called the commencement speech, even though it is a graduation speech, but it is called a commencement speech. And perhaps today it is fitting that we have the two together, those that have finished their training and the new intake who are coming in to begin a new chapter in their life. And for both sides, the word commencement is true. For the graduates, it's never the end, not the termination. It's a commencement for another step in your life. For the new ones, it is really commencement for you as you step into the realms of learning music here at NYB. But let's talk about the word graduation for a while. What is graduation? If it is marking an achievement or marking a certain point in our lives, if it is to mark dedication and hard work and perseverance, then graduation perhaps is a daily affair. Graduation is not a one-off affair. I have attended so many graduations in my career, and let me tell you my story. I remembered my graduation when I was in Form 6 at Queen Victoria School. It was Ratu Serpenea that came that day. And then I had a few prizes that I received that day. I think 2 prizes, English and biology, I think. And I remember we were sitting, all the people that had prizes were sitting on the front pews. This is at the chapel in QVS. And after receiving your prize, you had to go across and sit usually where the choir sits. And I went and received my first prize, did the Fijian protocol of marking respect because of the High Chief that was presenting. I went back, sat in the front seat, waiting for my second prize. When I went up to grab my second prize, as I sat down to show my respect, I could hear my Sulu thing just rip from the top to the bottom, zit, right down. The Sulvatang I was wearing was really my elder brother Sulu. We had passed it down the line, and I was the youngest, so I was wearing his Sulu, which is so many years old. And he just ripped from top to bottom, so I had to turn backwards to go and sit. I remembered that after the graduation, everybody went, and I had to sit at the chapel there until everybody was gone. Then I ran down from there into my dormitory and then changed. I attended my graduation when I joined the military, and in the military, your first one is when you finish your recruit. So happy. And then I had to join again and became an officer cadet, and then we had to graduate again. My graduation as an officer cadet was marked with the last warning on the first week. We had just finished recruit training, and then we had to gather together again and to start our officer training. And we had instructors from New Zealand that came to Fiji to kick off this officer cadet training. And on the Friday of the first week, we were taken up to the officers' mess. And we were shown food and drinks, and we were like enjoying it, you felt like an officer. And we thought that it was really just for fun. Everything, the beer was free, the drinks were free, there was food. And a few of us, we took it, and then we went to town. We sneaked out of the camp, went to town. We did not know that there was a directive given at the gates that all the officer cadets that go out tonight, you must write down their name. The next morning, my name was called out, and the chief instructor was a major from New Zealand. They said, "You went out last night." And then I realized that we were not supposed to go out. And from the first Friday on the first week of that training, I was on last warning. I managed to hang on. Out of the 40 of us who were training, 5 of us passed, and I was one of the 5. I hung on from week 1 on the Friday. We had a few who had then went halfway through the training, they would go out. But I managed to hang on and became an officer in the military. I graduated from the Staff College, which is the one I remember most because that's the highest level of training you get when you become a military officer. And you're training amongst some of the best students from around the world. I attended my staff officer training at the Naval College in Australia. Part of it in the Naval College of Australia, part of it was in England, the intermediate one. And then you would also graduate and go through the process that you're going through now for those of you who are graduating. But I feel that graduation is a daily affair. If we look at our lives and look at how we progress, you miss it if you do not make graduation a daily affair. Every day, you need to graduate because you're one day older, you would have done things that you have never done before and be happy about it. So my advice to you is that you should keep going. It's really a commencement for you today. It has to be a daily affair as you live your life. My speech is all in these notes. I would like to tell you 3 stories about myself. And that's the person I know best, and hopefully you will learn something from it. If you don't worry. You'll find somebody you will learn from. But I told this story to the students at LDS during their graduation. I'm the youngest in a family of 11. And my father died when I was in class 8, just 2 days before, in fact 1 day before we were supposed to sit for exam. Then it was called the secondary school entrance examination, it used to be called. So we had to wait 1 day, the exam in Vatoa then in my island, it has to be pushed forward 1 day so that I can sit the exam. We had to bury my father the next day after he died. And then we had to sit for the exam the following day. I sat for that exam, I passed, and I passed to QVS. The night my father died, my mom was on a boat, but they couldn't come into the passage because in Vatoa you need to see the passage. It's quite a narrow passage. They were steaming up and down outside the harbor, waiting for daylight to come in. By the time she came in, my father already died that night. So we sat for the exam and I passed. I managed to pass to QVS and I was so happy. And I left Vatoa for the first time to come to Suva to go to QVS. And it was a scary time for me for a few reasons. One, the biggest part was that I knew that I had no father. No more father, no more advice from my father. And given that I was the youngest, the small one, I was really scared of the world because I had no dad. 2, I've never been to Suva. And by then, there was no television where you would see glimpses of urban life. You just hear about it in the radio and you create your own imagination as to what urban life is all about. And I was scared of coming to Suva. We arrived at the wharf and I was seasick like a dog. I was just vomiting all the way from Vatoa for 2 days up until we arrived at the wharf. The boat, it was Andilau then. It was alongside, I was still throwing up on the side of the boat. And I looked and I saw the buses and the cars. And one of our relatives used to drive for a taxi called Piccadilly then, and they used to be just near the market, Piccadilly. And we got onto a taxi to go to Turek, and I never forget that day. It was one of the scariest moments in my life. I never understood how cars turn. I would see a car coming from the other side and I will be hiding in the taxi thinking that that car is going to ram into us. And the other thing, for the first time, it was the first time I had to wear shoes. I was 13 years old now, and it was the first time to fit some sort of shoes onto my feet. And you know, feet from the village, even flip-flop was hard for me to wear. My feet were so, my toes were so wide apart like this. The flip-flop can't even grip. I will walk and the flip-flop will just fall. And then I had to wear sandals, which was so painful. I had this thing that was spread like this, had to be squeezed and fit into a sandal, because in QBS you have to wear sandals. And then I went to QBS and went and studied and learned. Because I was so scared of the world that I had no father. In QBS, I never played any sports. My way of watching rugby was sitting up at the double-story building, which is the library, and I would just look down to Nukuvuto where they're playing. When they shout, but this is in between me reading books. I'll be reading books and they shout, and I look down like this to the ground. I was so scared that I had nothing else to do. I said, Vili, you have to learn, you have to learn, you have to learn, and make sure that you pass your exam. You have no father. You have no father now. You have to look after yourself. And all those thoughts that drove me from then. I passed from there, but I always wanted to be a doctor. Always wanted to be a doctor. Maybe because I was holding my father like this when he died. And that was me. Wanting to be a doctor, passed my exams, the graduation that I was talking about earlier, and then ended up as a military officer in the Navy, the last job that I wanted. Because every time we go fishing with my father, I'll be vomiting like a dog on the boat. And every time my father says, Vili, come, we go fishing. That's it. I'm like taking to the gallows to be hanged. I will throw up and throw up and throw up. But I ended up with the job that I never wanted to join. I wanted to join the army. My father was a military, was in the army then. But when I went to swear in, you have to hold the Bible and swear your oath. When I walked into the room to swear the oath, it was my elder brother who was sitting on the other side. He was an officer then. And he was the one administering the swearing in, the swearing of the oath. And I told myself, no way, I do not want to work with him. He's going to bully me around. So you had a choice whether you wanted to go Army, Navy. So he asked me, where are you going? I said, I'm going to be the Navy. He looked at me, huh? Navy? I said, yeah, Navy. He didn't know that the reason why I chose the Navy, because I didn't want to be with him. And then joined the Navy, had my career, and you heard that then I came down to the civil servant and Director Immigration for 2 years, Permanent Secretary for Fisheries and Forests, now is the Minister for Youth and Sports. Life is an amazing journey for us. For those of you who are coming here for the first time, and those of you who are going out, now that you're finished. Life is an amazing journey. We have all our beautiful little plans for our lives. You will have a plan for your lives. But amazingly, things fall into that journey like this, through life, that you never planned for. And it will just cross the path that you think that you should take. But you will find, and my experience is that when these things fall across the journey, fall across the path that you're following, that you think you're supposed to follow, you will find if you look hard enough in you, there is the solution there inside. You will have it within you. When things fall across the path that you think that this is the path that I should follow, if you look deep inside your heart, you will find that the solution is there. You have it in you, all the little things that you will need to then deal with that situation that has just come across you at that time. Most of the people, and I'm sure if I ask the question to those that are working, sitting here right now, if you ask them whether they really were planning to be here today and doing the work that they're doing, I don't know how many would raise their hands. But that's the reality of life. And that is why I say graduation is a daily affair. Graduation is a daily affair. In all the jobs that I did, apart from my military training, my military jobs, the other ones I never learned I never learned. But I find immigration, fisheries and forests, even this one, I had no formal training on it. But I just had to look inside, and I really now I've learned to trust myself that really, because of the way my posting has been done, they say over the table, Mataka, tomorrow go down, be director immigration, and I would stand up and say, God, I'm going, I have no idea what to do, and go. And same thing, tomorrow go down and be permanent secretary for fisheries and forests. I was told on Wednesday, go and swear in as the Minister for Youth and Sports. I was not planning for it. But I have learned to trust myself. I have learned to trust myself and just thank God for all that God has put in my life. And I know that even if they tell me tomorrow to go and be something, I trust that if I look hard enough inside here, I will find the things that I need to use to make my life useful in the new job that I'm told to go out and do. So, for those of you who are coming here for the first time and those of you who are going out, inside you is a reservoir of things that you will need that will never, ever run dry. The good thing with that reservoir, it never runs dry. It will always be there. You grow to be 80 years old, it will still be full. It will still be full. You just need to learn to keep that reservoir open. Keep it open so that every time these things that fall onto your path that you think is the right path, keep that reservoir open so that you can reach inside, pull the things that you need, use it, and move forward. The second story is about my wife. We attended the graduation at Nassau. And my wife, she's epileptic. And my wife got sick just when I think they were having the sermon. And my wife was sitting there and I was sitting at the top. They got a shock. I ran down, grabbed her because I could tell that she was going to get sick. Dropped her on the floor and we messed up all the seating. And the people that they were sitting, they all stood up, pushed the chairs, and put her on the floor. And she was, and for those of you who've seen epilepsy before, it's quite scary. So we had to go through the process. And I looked up to the Vakatao and told him, just keep going, just don't worry about it, just go through your sermon. So he's going through the sermon, finished the sermon, and while she was still sick there, it was time to pray, and we all prayed about her. And then it was time for me to be gallant, and the girl had to come and gallant me where I was sitting with my wife. She was still sick. And then she went to sleep for a while, and then when she was a little bit okay, we carried her out and went and rested at the director's home. And then it was my turn to speak. So I went back and spoke. And this is what I told the students at Nassau, and I want to say it with you. I had a speech prepared, and so I threw it out, and that was the message for them. And I told them, you know, you saw that lady that got sick, that's my wife. And I'm sure some of you are still, you know, shocked and scared about it. Eh? But I told her, you know, you heard my CV that was read? That CV from the first part of it, from when I joined the military, and we got married very early, just after I was a junior officer. I said, if you heard that CV, that's the woman behind that CV. That one, that you just saw, that got sick. From being a military officer, very difficult to stand behind a military officer. Know how to iron the clothes, especially if you're in the Navy and your uniform is white. Has to be washed every day, and etc. We had 4 kids, and the boys, the graduate at Nassau was looking at me. And I said, that's the woman behind that CV that you heard. She's epileptic, and that's her. She has the sickness since when she was a kid. But I told them, I've never ever heard her use her sickness as an excuse in our whole life. And up until today, she never will say, no, I can't do this because I've got epilepsy. She never. She raised our kids. She supported me right throughout, still supporting me up until today. Yesterday, we went up to Wainumala for that function that they're doing. My point to you, the message is this, you know, we have no excuse. She has one, I think. My wife has one excuse because she's epileptic. But she never uses it. She never uses it as an excuse. We who we think that we are good, we are the ones that are full of excuses. We don't have an excuse not to do well in life. You and me, we don't. Lillian has one. We don't. For those of you who are graduating today, for those of you who are coming to start here at NYB, tell yourself, we have no excuse not to do well. Excuses are only used to cover up our weaknesses and our failings. We use it to cover up our weaknesses and our failings. When we suffer adversities and difficulties, it's not excuses that will pick you up. It is accepting it and learning from that mistake that picks you up. Not excuses. Sadly, it will not pick you up. But if you accept it and learn from that mistake, you find that you will stand up very quickly, you dust yourself off, and off you go. And you will still go the way you want to go. No excuses. No excuses. When you have difficulty coming by you, it's not excuses that will solve it. No. It's learning and learning and learning and then moving forward. The last story. Really. When I was a junior officer, my home is in Nakasi. And one of the biggest sins in the military is if you come in late. Military people were slaves of the clock. You come in late, that's it. You know you're going to be charged, and it's either failing to attend a military parade or and etc. You will be charged if you come in late to work. And I was a very junior officer then, and I would walk before I had my first car. I would walk from home, from Nakasi. For those of you who know Nakasi, my home is past Navuloa Methodist Church, just next to the Hut. Hut village in Nakasi. I would walk up from there, right up to the main road, catch a bus or a taxi, return taxi or minibus. One day I knew that I was late, and I was hurrying, walking. And I could see this wheelchair that was just in front of Navuloa Church. The wheelchair was facing me. And my immediate conclusion was that, oh, this one here is going to the Hut village. When I arrived and I walked past this gentleman who was on the wheelchair, and I realized that the wheelchair was moving backwards. Not going towards the Hut, but it was moving backwards. And the person who was sitting on the wheelchair, his left side was dead. And what he was doing was, his leg that is good, the right leg, he would slide it under the bad one and kick it onto the ground, and then he would kick. And the wheelchair will move straight, but a few inches backwards. I walked past, and after 10 yards, I turned around and came back. Came back to him, and I asked, I said, where are you going? And I realized that he couldn't speak also. He just said, and pointed up to the main road. And, oh, this one you're going to the main road. And I was late. So I turned the wheelchair around and pushed him up to the main road. And he's big. And you know, going up to the main road is up the hill. With my sulvatanga and shirt, bang, up the hill. Pushed him, pulled him onto the curb, opposite MH's. And when I pulled him onto the curb, he would go, which was, I think, thank you. Put him, and I would say, okay, bye, and I'd go stop, go to work. I would do it every time. Sometimes I would walk past this person, and you know, I would be 30, 40, 50 meters past him, because I know, if I push this guy, I'm going to be late. But I will always turn around. I'll feel so guilty. I'll turn around, run back, and turn him around and push him up. One day, I knew it. This is it. Really, you're late. Okay, never mind. You're going to get charged. pushed him. And when I arrived at work, I arrived on time. And I would just sit and say, how did I come here and arrive doing all that and being late and arrive here on time? And then I realized that when I had pulled him onto the curb, there was a car that immediately stopped for me. I would just turn around, the car was there, and I would get in. I can't remember what it was, a return taxi on one of my friends, and to work. And then I looked back at every time I pushed this guy. And then I realized that every time I would pull him onto the curb, one car would immediately, either a car or minibus would immediately just stop next to me, and I would get on, and I will always go to work on time, arrive at work on time. And that thought that day made me feel so good. The point of that story to you is this, for this long journey that is called life for you, the fuel for it is kindness. Don't forget to be kind. I think God created that emotion so that we can feel and fuel ourselves. Every time you exercise an act of kindness, you find that your heart is happy, you make other hearts happy, and that is your fuel for your life. It's not money, it's not status, it is really kindness that will keep you happy and keep you going. Don't forget, now that you've graduated, to be kind in life. Welcome for those that are coming in, and for those that are going out, remember today is commencement, it is a start. I wish you well. Valelevu.
At tunay sa loa bata, inoke babadi, manasa kuribere, Simone siapa kasinga. Atta is now with the Fiji Correctional Services.